Hello, and welcome to the Authentically Elisa podcast, Unmasking Your True Self. I'm Elisa Bogarts, your guide on this journey to discovering the most genuine version of yourself. Each episode is a step towards unveiling the incredible power that lies within you as we strip away all the shoulds and shine a light on the coulds. Together, we'll explore the path of self-empowerment, self-confidence, and the courage to be unapologetically you. Thank you for being here. Hello, welcome to this episode. Today, you've got me. I'm going to be talking about my story. I'm going to be telling you about how I kind of got into confidence coaching and how it kind of morphed into me being more of like a business coach and being a launch planner, and how I got introduced to coaching and just really my kind of story there. So I hope that you are comfy and ready to kind of jump into this. There's sort of like three main parts to my story, and it all began back in 2004. I think it was the end of 2004. And some of you may have heard this story before, but I was at a friend's birthday party. And I'm sitting in her living room, and she had just gotten back from a backpacking trip throughout Asia. It was super cool. And so she brings out her photo album, this like amazing photo album. And I noticed that my heart sinks a little bit. I was really excited to see the pictures and, hear all about her trip. But I was also a little bit jealous because going backpacking was something that I had wanted to do for years and I never had. So many of my friends went right after high school, before they started uni, even if it was just for the summer. And I just hadn't done it yet. And I really, really wanted to go traveling. And this was her second backpacking trip too. And I hadn't even gone once. There's another friend of mine who had promised me that we were going to go, but life happens and it kind of been over 5 years. And I was like, I don't think this is ever going to happen. And at the time I thought that there was no way that I could go. I had too much responsibility. I was working a full-time job that I liked. It was the beginning of my career. And I had a mortgage. I bought an apartment in downtown Vancouver, and I just bought a brand new car. And I was going to college in the evenings. I mean, life was good, right? I didn't really have anything to complain about. I was like doing well in my career. I'm not really sure if I would call it a career. It was more like just sort of a job, but people, because I was so gung-ho about it, that people were like, oh my God, what are you going to do next? You're going to be like a CEO or something. It was kind of funny how they would joke about that just because I was, doing so well at such a young age. And, for me, it was just kind of the paycheck. And I don't know, I remember thinking being in college and being the first couple of years, and I was like, I was taking every ology possible. And I just thought, what am I going to get at the end of this? I'm going to get like, a master or a bachelor of arts degree in what, philosophy? I'm like, what kind of job is that going to? I just want to get a job. So that kind of started business school and college, and then eventually did get the job. So that's kind of where I was like, yay, I did it. Here's the paycheck. And, but also, like many of you, I'm sure, making my family proud was something that I strive for, especially being the youngest. And I finally felt that I kind of got their respect by being the youngest to own, a brand new apartment that was just built, and it was downtown too, which was awesome. So I was in my early 20s. So it was stumbling distance from the clubs. And I just thought, well, if I wanted to go traveling, how could I leave my new place? What would I do about my mortgage? But the truth is that I really wasn't that happy. I was doing the daily grind, same thing day in and day out. And like many of you, I felt a bit down and bored. But I also felt guilty for feeling this way because, what did I have to complain about? I wanted change, but I had no idea where to start. And I was checking all of the boxes of life. I was being such a good girl, but I wasn't sure if my life was actually filled with things that I wanted. I knew I wanted to go traveling, explore the world. That was for sure. And I remember thinking, is this it? You get a job, you go work, you live in your home that you bought, you drive your car, eventually like marriage and kids is next. And I was like, I kind of feel like I'm already in this mundane sort of repetitive cycle. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm kind of too young for this. Is this really it? Is this what my life is going to be like from now until, like the next 40 years until I 45 years until I retired? I just thought about like, well, what about all the things that I want to do? But I wasn't really sure that I had the confidence to change my entire life. Could I actually do that? And I kind of knew that, my mom would freak out or kill me if I was going traveling, but she would be so worried. But wasn't going to let that stop me. And so back at the party, we're like oohing and awing and all the amazing travel pictures of my friend. And another friend said that she was going backpacking the next year. So I think this was in December of 2004. And she was going in the spring, summer of 2005. And I immediately felt this excitement growing in my belly. And I started asking her like the details of her trip, and it just sounded super amazing. She was going to Fiji, New Zealand, and then Australia. And I was like, how cool would that be? And I built up the courage to ask her if I could join her. She was like, yeah, let's talk about it over coffee next week. And I was so surprised and inspired by her that night. And I went home and I finally gave myself permission to go after what I wanted, to go and to travel. But I knew I had to give myself some real talk. I said to myself, Elisa, you have been such a good girl. You have done all of the right things. Your family is so proud of you. Right? Look at all that you've accomplished. You deserve happiness and you are not happy. Stop waiting for somebody else to give you this permission, for somebody else to tell you that it's okay, for somebody else to take you on this trip. This opportunity has literally fallen on your lap, so go after it. And that when your dad died, that you wanted to live life to the fullest. And you're not doing that. Keep saying live life to the fullest, but you're not following your own dreams. It's time. And the next week at coffee, I made a commitment with my friend to go with her, and she'd already booked her flights. So I went home and I just like ripped the band-aid off. I booked my flights, and that feeling, I had this incredibly huge surge of joy. The kind where you just like jump around your house, like you just can't, you just gotta want to like shake and jump around. This is so exciting. And I vowed to myself to remember that feeling. To remember that feeling anytime anyone or anything, including myself, is going to get in the way of me going. So I made a 7-month plan to pack up my life, and I went. So it was supposed to be a 4-month backpacking trip in 3 countries. Ended up being 11 years. I lived abroad for 11 years. And in my life in total, I've now traveled 53 countries. Which is something I'm incredibly proud of. So about halfway through that 11 years, and about 5 years into my hiatus, I went backpacking for the second time. I had been living in Amsterdam, and I decided I wanted to leave Amsterdam and move to London, England, and in between did a 7-month backpacking trip. And I traveled with my boyfriend at the time. But we really should have broken up before we left. That was, however, the first thing that we did when we moved to London. Like we landed in London, and a few weeks later, we broke it off. And, I took this courageous step to change my life by moving to London because I was unhappy where I was, only to find myself that when I first moved there to be homeless because when we moved, we were staying with his brother. So now I couldn't stay there anymore. I didn't have a job yet, so I was jobless. I knew a couple of acquaintances and like an old friend from high school who I hadn't talked to in like 7 years. So I felt like I was locally friendless. I was broke because I just been backpacking for 7 months and I did have some money, but not enough. And I was heartbroken. This was the first time that I felt the weight of depression. My confidence was so low. The relationship was a mentally abusive one. And so I didn't really know what I thought or how to think for myself. And so I just didn't really know where to go or what to do. I was able to find a home though, which gave me some hope that things might work out with this move. And one day I was lying on my uncomfortable, it was a furnished apartment, this little love seat. I was uncomfortable and I was all scrunched up. And I was staring at the TV and I was watching the show Ugly Betty, and it wasn't even funny to me anymore. And then I noticed my phone buzzes. I slowly reach over and grab it. And it was a text from a woman that I had met traveling in Nepal. And she was from London or lived in London, and she moved back a few months after me. And she wanted to meet up for a drink. And I remember just staring at that, being like, ugh, that would mean that I'd have to get up and shower and leave the house. I don't know if any of you have been in a depressed state, but sometimes those things seem very, very difficult. And it was also like it was November, so it was like cold and rainy in London. And I was like, oh, outside. I was grateful to have a friend though. I hadn't made many of those yet. And she sent me another text with a suggestion to meet at this tea shop in Camden. And I must have stared at that phone and that text for about 10 minutes because I really didn't feel like leaving the couch. On my buzz, she texts me again because she knew I wasn't doing anything, right? I had no excuse. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll go, like, get off the couch. I dragged myself off the couch and I showered and I went to bed. And when I met her, she greeted me with this warm hug. And the tea shop was super cute. It had comfy armchairs and little tables, and it was decorated with teapots and cups and saucers. The kind of bone china ones that are all decorated beautifully. And I ordered a mint tea, and it smelled divine. And it felt really warm in my hands. And as we chatted over our tea, she asked me what I wanted out of my life in London. And, haven't gotten out of that emotionally abusive relationship. I hadn't been asked what I wanted in years. What did I want? I was literally completely stumped by this question. I wasn't even sure who I was anymore, but I knew I didn't want to feel stuck or miserable anymore. That was for sure. So I gulped back my tears with my tea, and she suggested I spend some time meditating on it. And this question, what do you want, is really what lifted me out of the low state that I was in. It gave me the freedom to think for myself. And I started really to evaluate my life, every part of it. What did I want? Who did I want to be? How did I want to show up in this world? And even though I was there in London on my own, it was this beautiful, looking back at it. Of course, it was hard during the time. Looking back, it was like this beautiful moment where I didn't have external factors. There was nobody telling me who I should be or how I should be or what I should do and who I need to hang out with or there was no pressures or obligations or anything from anywhere. So I got to create the life that I wanted. I got to choose, and I got to think for myself and choose for myself without being influenced by anyone. And I went on this 2-year journey to figure this out. And I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I started to go after what I wanted. I set goals for myself. I used meditation to become more mindful. I took a course that introduced me to affirmations and identifying what I wanted out of my career. I read personal development books. I had to learn a lot of things the hard way. I didn't get like a coach or a mentor. So there were some really positive, influential people that did help me. And it took me a long time to learn to love myself and to speak my truth. which was terrifying because I didn't have the proper communication tools for sure. I know I like rubbed people the wrong way when I tried to communicate boundaries. And I discovered what my values were. And I knew I had to start living them so I could be the person that I wanted to be my authentic self. Not the multitude of personas or roles that I've been playing my entire life. And this took courage. And, I often wish that I had the support system to, that I could have shared my struggles with people. I mean, I did, but they were, in Vancouver, which is super far away. And so or in Amsterdam, but they weren't there. There's a lot of ups and downs, and I did find my confidence again. I found happiness and I made my life the way that I wanted it. And in London is where I was introduced to coaching. I went to this weekend sort of coaching intro by some academy there. And that's really where I saw the power in it. It was incredible just doing these little coaching exercises with other people and how they had these transformations and how I had these sort of transformations. I was like, wow, this is so awesome. I did do a little bit of coaching while I was in London. I did some career coaching, a volunteer to help people kind of get back into the workforce. And I also did a little bit of health coaching because I was running and I loved health. I was super passionate about that. But I pretty much kind of put it on the back burner because my project management career really took off. And the third phase of my story is when I moved back to Vancouver. And I was a project manager, doing really well in my career as a project manager. And of course, the coaching thing was kind of in the back of my mind, but relocating and restarting your life is a lot. And so also I got into a new industry, the project management. So that was a lot to take on. But then the pandemic hit, right? Which was a time for all of us that I think a lot of us really sat down and evaluated our lives. And it was this kind of incredible opportunity again, where there was that sort of solitude for all of us to really give ourselves the time and the space to think about what we want. And I know a lot of people made changes. And that's sort of when I realized that I wasn't happy being a project manager. It didn't necessarily matter which company I worked for. I was like, maybe it's not the people or it's not the company, but maybe it's the job. And I was like, oh yeah, that coaching thing. Maybe I'll bring that back up. And so I started in 2020, got my certification, started down that path, and ended up getting 4 certifications. And through that, because as you go, or at least with the institute that I was with, that as you do the coaching, that you practice coaching with others. And so you also are going through this transformational journey that you are taking other people on. You're coaching people, but you're also being coached on it. And there's a saying in the coaching world that you can only go as far, you're going to take your clients as far as you will also go. And so when I did my mastery level coaching certification, that really went deep into beliefs and identities. And through that, I realized that I really wanted to, because I kind of started with health coaching and I was like, oh, I really want to help people with confidence coaching because, like what I explained earlier, was that I was in times of my life that were really difficult and I needed to choose what I wanted, or I was stumped by that question, or I knew what I wanted, but I wasn't going after it. And so I want to help people with that, to not be in that stuck state, to live the life that they want, because this is the one life that we have. And I believe that we should fill it with what we want, that we should make it the way that we want it and not just do things because we were conditioned or told that we need to do things in a certain way, or to have safety and security, which is something that we all want. And yet we can still live the life that we want. And so, kind of really trying to get rid of all those shoulds is what I really wanted to help people with. And so I went on that path and I was doing it on the side while still working in my corporate job as a project manager. And then throughout 2023, I really ramped up my coaching business. I started doing my talks on summits and podcasts. You can actually check them out on my website. There's links to like the YouTube shows and podcasts and things that I've been on if you wanted to check them out. It's inspirationbyelisa.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. I also took on that squirrel mindset. I don't know if any of you know about that, but where I was introduced to so many amazing business coaches who all had something incredible that would help me with my business. So I went to like all the summits, all the workshops, all the master classes, the 3-day events. And I have to say that if you're a coach, really be mindful of this and choose the ones that you think will really be worth your time. There are some really good ones out there. So there definitely are ones that are good, worth your time. And there are definitely some amazing programs. Um, but not all are super amazing, or maybe you won't necessarily resonate with that coach. So you might spend, more time going to the events and doing courses and actually implementing what they teach you. So just be mindful of that. And in one of these classes that I was in, I found out that if I wanted to host my own summit, that I could hire someone to do it for me and that they would assign me a project manager. And I was like, wait a second, what? They hire project managers for that? I'm like, I could totally do that. And then I started to find out that many established coaches, like the 6-figure, the multi-6-figure ones in revenue, they hire project managers. They have people help them run their events, these 3-day events that they do, and their launches. They do launches, 3-4 times a year, and they have project managers help them with that. So this is where the seed was planted. When I quit my corporate job, the next day, literally the next day, I flew to Vegas. I went to this in-person event. It was a networking event where I got to meet my business coach in person, which is so awesome. You get to actually hug somebody that you see on Zoom all the time. And I bounced this idea off of using my project management skills in the coaching world. And he was like, you need to be a launch manager or a launch planner. Like that would be so perfect. And I even started to notice and realize that in many of the programs that I did take, because I'm such a doer, I'm such a person who like implements and does things, and I'm a planner and I'm organized, that I was able to implement the coursework much faster than many of the people in my same cohort. I was like, oh, well, this could be an interesting gap that I could fill. And I started talking to some of my coach friends, and they're like, yeah, if I had somebody tell me what I needed to do every day or every week with my business and get my program out there and like what to do all the time, he's like, that would be amazing. If I had someone help me put a plan together and then I knew what to do each week, to be successful, that would be amazing. So I was like, yeah, this could be a thing. And it did sound great, right? But sometimes when you say something out loud, sometimes it's perfect and you're like, yes, and it clicks. And other times it doesn't sit right. Well, for me, it didn't sit right. I noticed that I had this huge resistance to it. I was like, that's what I did in my corporate job. I just left corporate. I don't want to do anything to do with that now, nor bring it into my own business. I had this huge ick feeling with it. And I still really wanted to be a confidence coach. So I put the idea to the side and I carried on. And my business coach and many other people were still encouraging me to be this launch planner, but I just wasn't ready. So eventually, instead of just pushing that ick feeling down, right? As we know as coaches, we are as human beings that, ignoring the feelings and pushing them down is not something we need to be processing our feelings, kind of get them up there. I decided to use the tools I have to figure out what was really going on with me. And yes, there was a lot of resistance with it being, in corporate. And part of it was because some of my time in corporate was in a toxic environment. I had to deal with adversity, and I often felt belittled by people who claimed to be smarter than me. It's like they would say, like, oh, you just did a certification that took 5 days, but they went to university and they got a degree, or all those kinds of things. I mean, and some people I worked with were incredibly intelligent, and I really respected them for that. Also, I noticed that a lot of the project processes were quite strict, and that everyone had an opinion of how it should work. And I often felt like I was always at a loss or couldn't please everyone with the process. And it was just always this sort of struggle. And so there was this history and all these negative things when I did leave. And when I did leave, I was completely burnt out. And I was scared that if I went back to project management, this would mean the same toxicity and the same burnt out feeling. And I did not want any of that back. And then I began to reframe all of this. And I started saying this affirmation to myself that I am open to using my gifts and talents. And over time, this affirmation, I'm open to using my gifts and talents, it really helped me to calm down. And then I could think more clearly and be more open to have an everything is new mindset and knowing that I was projecting my past right onto my future, which was the thought pattern that I've been working on changing because I know that history doesn't repeat itself exactly, does it? I also did a lot of journaling and meditating and using some mindfulness tools and emotional processing with this. And it gave me a perspective that if I do use my management skills, it will be my process that I use. It will also be in a completely different industry. And I would get to work with the people, I would get to choose who I want to work with. And this made this much less scary and sounded like a lot more fun. I was like, wait, I get to run my own business, use the skills that come easy to me, work with my favorite people who are coaches and help them with these skills that they don't have so they can do their amazing work and make this world a better place. Okay, that sounds pretty awesome. I also knew that I could lean on my own experience of launching programs as a coach too. Because when I did my first launch, I understood how difficult it was to get all of this stuff done. It was like this giant puzzle with so many little pieces, and it took me time to figure out how to make them all fit. And I've been like adapting it and improving it as I went. And I definitely messed up. I made mistakes. I forgot things. Some people got no emails and other people got the wrong emails. And I sent an email at midnight instead of at noon. And all I knew was at the end of my first launch, I didn't make any money. And ever since then, I've really become a master at launching. And I want to help coaches who maybe aren't as organized as me or who are, big ideas people and big picture thinkers to make launching their programs less overwhelming and less stressful. So I'm all about systems and plans and processes. I think about this. I use project management like in my entire life. I project manage everything. And so I can use these skills and my coaching experience along with my organizational skills and my confidence coaching, my mindfulness tools to help coaches launch their programs. And I know this isn't a skill that everyone has, so I really want to share my superpower with the people that I love the most who are coaches. So since I've been able to get over my fears and change my perspective, my business has been doing amazing. What I do is I have this program launch template that is everything you need for planning and tracking your program as a coach. It's a sort of one-stop shop kind of document where you can put everything in, like your targets, your links to your assets, links to the websites and things. I know that if you ever, someone's like, oh, send me the link to that. And you're like, oh, where did I save that link? It's somewhere. Or they're like, send me your bio or give me your headshot or all these kinds of things are like, oh yeah, you're doing a workshop. Like, where's the picture for that? So this one document is where you can save the links to all of that. So you can just go to this document and be like, there it is. It's super easy, efficient. It's right there, one place to look. And there are tracking sheets for things like, like your speaking gigs. Because sometimes we're like, okay, you know what, I'm doing this summit and it's costing me money. And, is there a return on investment? How many opt-ins did I get? Did any of those people become clients? So you can track that kind of stuff. Same with gift giveaways or the events that you do. How about the attendees that came? Did people show up? Did they come like all the way to the end of your pitch? And there's also like a marketing calendar on there too. And then it's got the plan. It's a big checklist of everything that you need to do for your launch. And it's got like all the tasks and subtasks. And then there's also a thing for start dates and end dates. So you can actually start planning for responsibility of who's doing what. You can also look at risks and dependencies. So they actually go through your plan. It's really a beautiful thing. I love it. I'm so proud of it. And every coach that I've taken through it has been thoroughly impressed. All of them were just like, wow, like this thing is amazing. And they even called me out in networking meetings in front of other people. I've introduced myself and they were just like, I just want to give a shout out to Elisa because it was seriously like amazing. Everybody should work with her, which I just thought was so sweet. And how they said that how they feel so much more, organized and in control of their launch. And I understand that there's a lot to do, right? Because there is a lot to do. We can't get away from that. But if you can get it structured and organized and know what you need to do each week, it makes it less overwhelming, right? You have this way of looking at it, and you can just do it bit by bit and trust the process. The other great thing with the plan is that you get to commit to a date of when you will launch your program. Now, I know that this can be scary, and you may think that you're not ready or your program isn't perfect yet, or you don't know what to do. Certain things like you don't know about the tech or you don't know how to create something, setting a date and actually telling another person about it. And that person's going to hold you accountable to that date. And we're going to make a plan based on that date. It can kind of give you butterflies in your tummy because it's putting it out into the universe, right? It means that it's actually going to happen, which can be super exciting. And as they say, fear is excitement on pause. So if you're ready to launch, I'd love to have a chat with you and see if I can help you put a plan together so you can spread your genius to the world. I'll put a link in the show notes. You can book a complimentary 30-minute call with me. We can talk about it. And as I've been putting in some of the other episodes on the confidence side of things, I don't coach on confidence as much anymore. I do bring it in when I'm working with coaches, launching their programs. As those things kind of come up, I do use those skills there. But I did put when I did my confidence coaching, I created the confidence method, which is my 10-step system to help you feel more confident in yourself. So you feel super secure in yourself, and then you know what you want, and you have the tools and strategies to go after it. And you have the tools that, if you're going to get in your own way, if other people are going to get in your way, and how to navigate all of that. And so it's the confidence medics is the word confidence is made into an acronym, and those are the 10 steps. And I put those into a book. I self-published a book last year. It's called Change Your Life with Self-Confidence. It's available on Amazon. It's only $10 Canadian. So I'll put links in the thing for that too, if that's more of an interest for you of improving your confidence, or if you'd like to work with me to launch your program. Another thing that I wanted to introduce in this episode is the freebie vault. So with my episodes and most of my guests, we all have gifts for you, and you'll be able to access all the gifts from myself and my guests in the freebie vault. So check out the show notes for the link. So my gifts for you in this episode, I have two for you. One is called Launch Mastery. So it's 5 game-changing tactics that every coach needs to launch their program. So if you want to have a smooth running and organized program launch, where there's going to be less stress, you can focus on spreading your genius and helping people. If you're feeling stressed when it comes up to all the things you need to do for your program launch, this guide is for you. It is the perfect start. It has 5 game-changing tactics that will help you set you up for success and what you need to have a smooth running program launch so you can be efficient and more productive. And my second gift is called Your Bold Move. So this is 3 tips to unlock your potential. So if you're feeling stuck in your career, uncertain about your future, or afraid to make the changes that you desire, you're really not alone in that. Many successful professionals find themselves grappling with self-doubt and professional burnout, or really this paralyzing fear of change. But it really doesn't have to be this way. So this guide will help you reclaim your confidence, reignite your passion, and take bold steps towards meaningful change. I hope you enjoy those gifts. All right, well, that's it for today. I just wanted to share my story with you and let you know that if you wanted to work with me, you can. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope it inspired you to live a more authentic life. I'd love your help in inspiring more people to live authentically, so please follow, rate, and leave a review so we can create a ripple effect of authenticity. Until next time, stay true to you, be bold, and thrive on your own terms. This is Elisa, signing off authentically.